The atmosphere inside the luxurious restaurant was a cacophony of clinking glasses, laughter, and the soft strains of a live jazz band playing in the corner. The dim lighting cast a warm glow over the elegantly set tables adorned with white tablecloths and flickering candles, creating an ambience of intimacy amidst the bustling crowd. Waitstaff moved with precision, their uniforms crisp and neat, navigating the narrow spaces between tables as they attended to the needs of the diners. Among them was Maya, a young black woman in her mid-20s, whose dark skin glistened under the soft lights as she weaved through the throng of patrons. Her brown eyes sparkled with determination, a stark contrast to the heavy burden she carried on her slender shoulders. She had dreams that reached far beyond the confines of serving tables, aspirations to become a chef, to create masterpieces in the kitchen that would inspire others. But tonight, like so many others, she was simply trying to make ends meet, her heart set on an elusive future that felt both tantalizingly close and frustratingly distant. As she approached a table near the back, she overheard snippets of conversation, laughter, stories, and the occasional clamor of raised voices. The clatter of silverware against porcelain added to the restaurant's symphony, a sound she had grown accustomed to over her years of working there. Maya took a deep breath, her nerves steadying as she focused on her next task. She had a friendly smile for everyone, believing that a genuine demeanor could light up even the gloomiest of days. Just then, the front door swung open with a flourish, drawing the attention of several patrons. Ethan, a sharply dressed man in his 40s, swaggered in, flanked by a group of equally affluent companions. His presence was commanding, the kind of confidence that stemmed from a bank account that could afford him the best of everything. He laughed boisterously, his voice echoing through the restaurant as he made his way to a table prominently located in the center of the dining area. His laughter filled the space, a mixture of amusement and arrogance that made heads turn. "Look at this place. They must be rolling in it, huh?" Ethan exclaimed, his voice dripping with disdain as he surveyed the surroundings. His friends chuckled, nodding in agreement, reveling in the privilege that came with their wealth. They settled into their seats, their laughter punctuating the air, a stark contrast to the more subdued conversations of the other diners. Maya watched from a distance, her heart sinking slightly as she caught sight of the group. She had learned to brace herself for the worst when dealing with patrons like Ethan, those who seemed to wear their entitlement as a badge of honor. With a resolute breath, she approached their table with her notepad in hand, determined to provide them with the best service she could muster. "Good evening. Welcome to La Belle Époque. Can I start you off with some drinks?" she asked, her voice warm and inviting despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. Ethan looked up, his gaze raking over her from head to toe, a smirk forming on his lips. "What's this? A server or a model? You ought to be careful. You might just steal the spotlight from the food," he sneered, his tone laced with condescension. Maya's smile faltered for a brief moment as she felt the weight of his words. She fought to maintain her composure, reminding herself that she was here to do a job, not to engage in a battle of wits with a man who thrived on belittling others. "I assure you, sir, our food is definitely the star of the show," she replied, her voice steady despite the rising heat in her cheeks. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his friends chuckling at his comment. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice dripping with mock sweetness that only deepened the sting of his earlier remark. "Maya," she responded, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "And I'll be happy to take your order whenever you're ready." "Ready? What do you think I am? Some kind of charity case?" He shot back, his laughter mingling with that of his companions. "You might want to try harder to impress me." I've seen better service in a fast food joint. The air in the restaurant seemed to freeze for a moment, patrons exchanging shocked glances as they witnessed the public humiliation unfold. Maya's heart raced, a mixture of anger and embarrassment coursing through her veins. She had faced her share of challenges as a waitress, but this was different. This was an attack not just on her professionalism, but on her very identity. "Is there something I can get you to drink?" she asked again, her voice barely above a whisper, trying to navigate the fine line between professionalism and the urge to stand up for herself. "Why don't you go back to school and learn how to serve properly?" Ethan continued, his arrogance growing bolder with each word. "I bet you'd be really good at it if you didn't spend all your time dreaming about becoming a chef." Maya felt the heat rise in her chest, her fists clenching at her sides. The laughter of Ethan and his friends rang in her ears, a painful reminder of the prejudice she had faced throughout her life. But amidst the humiliation, something inside her stirred, a flicker of defiance that urged her to respond. "Actually, I'm working hard to achieve my dream," she said, her voice firmer now, a glimmer of strength breaking through the embarrassment. "I believe in my potential, and one day, I'll prove that I belong in the kitchen." Ethan's smirk faltered for a split second, surprise flickering across his features. "Cute story, but I'm not buying it," he retorted, a hint of defensiveness creeping in his tone as he leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "You really think you can make it in this world? People like you don't belong in fine dining." With that, Maya felt the tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Instead, she took a deep breath, channeling her hurt into resolve. "I'll take your order now," she said, her voice steady, the warmth in her demeanor returning as she prepared to walk away, her heart heavy but her spirit unbroken. As she turned to leave, the whispers and murmurs from the surrounding tables filled the air, a chorus of disbelief and sympathy for the young waitress standing her ground. The restaurant, once a haven of laughter and fine dining, now buzzed with an undercurrent of tension, the kind that often arose when arrogance met resilience. Maya walked back to the kitchen, her mind racing. She replayed the encounter in her head, the sting of Ethan's words echoing in her thoughts. But beneath the hurt, she felt a spark of determination igniting within her, an understanding that she was more than just a waitress. She was a woman with dreams and aspirations, deserving of respect, no matter what others might say. As she reached the kitchen, her colleague Jake, a fellow server who had caught glimpses of the encounter, looked up from his station. "Maya, you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. She forced a smile, the warmth of his friendship bringing her some comfort. "Yeah, just another day in paradise," she replied, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her true feelings. Jake frowned, his brow furrowing. "That guy was a jerk. You handled it like a pro, though. Don't let him get to you." Maya nodded, grateful for his support. "Thanks, Jake. I know I shouldn't let it bother me, but sometimes it just hits harder than usual. Just remember, you're destined for bigger things," he said, his voice encouraging. "Keep your head up. You've got this." As Maya took a deep breath, she felt the weight of the moment lift slightly, allowing her to focus on the future she envisioned for herself. She would not let one man's prejudice define her journey. Tonight might have been filled with humiliation, but tomorrow held the promise of hope, a chance to rise above the challenges and prove her worth. The lavish restaurant was momentarily hushed, the clinking of glasses and the soft murmur of conversations fading into an uncomfortable silence as the weight of Ethan's words hung in the air. Maya stood before him, her heart racing and cheeks flushed with embarrassment, a stark contrast to the polished elegance of her surroundings. She had approached the table with confidence, her well-practiced smile ready to serve the needs of this wealthy patron. Yet, the moment Ethan opened his mouth, everything shifted. "Can I get a drink that's actually worth my money?" he sneered, his friends erupting in laughter at the expense of Maya's dignity. The laughter echoed around the restaurant, but for Maya, it felt like a solitary sound, reverberating painfully in her ears. She swallowed hard, forcing her composure to hold as she gripped her notepad tightly. "Of course, sir. What would you like to drink?" she managed to ask, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a smug grin plastered across his face. "I'd like it if you could serve it without the attitude," he said, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed her. "Or is that too much to ask from someone like you?" Maya felt the heat rise in her chest, anger mixing with humiliation. She was no stranger to prejudice. She had faced it her entire life. But this was different. This was public, a spectacle designed to belittle her. She took a deep breath, trying to summon the grace her mother always told her to uphold in the face of adversity. "I apologize if I seem disrespectful, sir. I will bring your drink right away," she said, forcing a smile, though her heart felt heavy. She turned on her heel, her mind racing as she walked away from the table. The stares of the other patrons bore down on her, their disbelief at Ethan's behavior palpable in the air. As she retreated to the back of the restaurant, she could still hear the laughter and mocking comments echoing behind her. "Did you see her face?" One of Ethan's friends chuckled. "Priceless." Maya pushed through the kitchen door, the familiar warmth of the bustling space offering a brief reprieve from the humiliation she had just endured. The smell of sautéed vegetables and rich sauces filled her nostrils, grounding her momentarily. She leaned against the counter, her hands shaking as she fought back tears. "Hey, are you okay?" Jake, a fellow waiter, approached, concern etched on his face. "I'm fine," she replied, though her voice cracked. "Fine doesn't look like that," he said gently, crossing his arms. "What did that jerk say to you this time?" Maya hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. "Just the usual," she muttered, her eyes downcast. "He thinks he can demean me because of the color of my skin. People like him are just insecure," Jake said, his voice firm. "They think money can buy respect, but it doesn't. You have to rise above it." "I know," Maya replied, biting her lip. "But it's hard. Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. I'm trying to become a chef, but moments like this make me doubt myself." "Don't doubt yourself," Jake said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're talented, Maya. You have dreams, and you deserve to chase them." Maya offered a small smile, grateful for his support. "Thanks, Jake. I just wish I could shake off moments like this." "Let's get back out there and show him that we're better than his petty insults," Jake encouraged, his eyes bright with determination. As they walked back to the dining area, Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself for the rest of the night. She had been through hardships that had shaped her into the person she was, and she refused to let Ethan or anyone else define her worth. Meanwhile, in the dining area, the tension was palpable. Grace, a middle-aged woman seated at a nearby table, had watched the entire exchange unfold. Her heart ached for Maya, and she could no longer remain silent. "Excuse me," she said, rising from her seat and approaching Ethan's table. "I couldn't help but overhear how you spoke to that waitress. It was completely uncalled for." Ethan looked up, his arrogance unfazed. "And who are you to lecture me?" he asked, dismissively waving a hand. "I'm someone who believes in treating people with respect, regardless of their background," Grace replied, her voice steady. "What you did was cruel, and it's unacceptable." Ethan scoffed, exchanging glances with his friends, who rolled their eyes at Grace's interference. "You don't know anything about me," he said, leaning back in his chair with a smirk. "I can say whatever I want. This is a free country." "Yes, it is," Grace shot back, her voice rising slightly. "And that freedom should come with responsibility. You think your wealth gives you the right to belittle others, but it doesn't. It makes you small. The laughter at the table faded, replaced by a tense silence, as other patrons began to take notice. Ethan's expression shifted, irritation flashing across his face. "You're out of line," he retorted, his arrogance cracking ever so slightly. "Why don't you mind your own business?" "Because I care," Grace replied, her eyes fierce. "I care about people like Maya, who work hard and deserve dignity. You should be ashamed of yourself." Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but the words faltered. He could feel the weight of the stares from the surrounding tables, their disapproval palpable. His bravado began to crumble, but he quickly masked it with a forced laugh, trying to regain control of the situation. "Look, lady, I'm not here to discuss social issues," he sneered. "I'm here to enjoy a meal, and I don't need you lecturing me." Grace stood her ground. "You may not want to hear it, but the world doesn't revolve around you. You need to learn that your actions have consequences." With that, she turned on her heel and walked back to her table, leaving Ethan momentarily speechless. Maya, watching from a distance, felt a spark of hope ignited by Grace's bravery. For a fleeting moment, she forgot her own pain, inspired by the kindness of a stranger willing to stand up against injustice. But as the moment passed, the reality of her situation hit her again like a wave, dragging her back into her thoughts. Stepping into the kitchen, she felt the tears she had been holding back threaten to spill over. She needed to breathe, to collect herself. The clamor of the kitchen was comforting, yet the sting of humiliation still lingered in her heart. In the solitude of the back room, she found herself reflecting on her journey. From her childhood in the neighborhood where opportunity was a fleeting dream to the late nights spent practicing recipes in her tiny apartment, she had fought hard for every inch of progress. But moments like this, like Ethan's cruel taunts, made her question everything. "Why do I let people like him get to me?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. She closed her eyes, imagining the day she would step into a professional kitchen as a chef, her dishes celebrated rather than mocked. She dreamed of flavors and creativity, of a world where her skin color would never define her worth. With a deep breath, she wiped her tears, reminding herself that her dreams were worth fighting for. Maya had always believed that dignity was not a gift bestowed by others, but a right she claimed for herself. She would not let Ethan or anyone else take that away from her. Gathering her strength, she resolved to face the rest of the night with her head held high, determined to show that even in the face of prejudice, she would remain unbroken. The kitchen was alive with the clatter of pots and pans, the sharp scent of sautéed garlic mingling with the sweetness of caramelizing onions. Maya stood at the prep station, her heart still heavy from the humiliation she had endured just moments ago. She could feel the sting of Ethan's words echoing in her mind, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to drown in the wave of embarrassment that washed over her. But as she glanced around the bustling kitchen, she spotted Jake, a fellow cook who had always been her ally in this high-pressure environment. "Maya," Jake said, wiping his brow with the back of his hand as he noticed her distracted demeanor. "You okay?" She forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil inside her. "Yeah, just you know how it is." Jake raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "You're not fooling anyone. That guy out there, Ethan, he's a total jerk. Don't let him get to you." Maya sighed, leaning against the counter, the weight of her dreams pressing heavily on her shoulders. "It's just hard sometimes, you know. I work so hard to be here, and then someone like him just comes in and makes me feel so small." Jake crossed his arms, his expression softening. "You're not small, Maya. You're one of the best here. I've seen how passionate you are about cooking. You've got the talent, and you deserve to be in that culinary school." Her heart fluttered at the mention of her dreams. Ever since she could remember, she had wanted to be a chef, to create dishes that told stories and brought joy to people's lives. But moments like this made her question if she could ever rise above the obstacles thrown in her path. "I just don't know if I can handle moments like this," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. What if it happens again? What if I'm not good enough? Jake stepped closer, his gaze steady and reassuring. Listen, Maya, you can't let people like him define your worth. You've got a talent that shines bright, and it's only going to get brighter. Remember why you started cooking in the first place? Maya nodded, the fire igniting within her again as she thought of her dreams. I want to create dishes that inspire people, that make them feel something. It's just hard to hold on to that when someone tries to tear you down. Then hold on tighter, Jake urged, giving her a friendly nudge. You're on the brink of something great. Just wait until you get that scholarship, and then show everyone what you're made of. As Maya listened to Jake's words, a flicker of hope ignited deep within her. She envisioned herself in a prestigious culinary school, honing her skills and gaining the confidence she so desperately craved. Thanks, Jake. I really needed to hear that. With a renewed sense of determination, Maya returned to her tasks, chopping vegetables with precision and focus. The rhythm of the kitchen became her sanctuary, drowning out the echoes of Ethan's disdain. Little did she know, across the restaurant floor, Ethan was basking in the glow of his own arrogance. Sitting at a lavish table adorned with extravagant dishes, Ethan leaned back in his chair, a smug grin plastered across his face as he regaled his friends with tales of his supposed power. You know what's great about being me? He boasted, swirling the wine in his glass. I can intimidate anyone. Just watch how easily I can put people in their place. His friends laughed, egging him on. You really showed that waitress tonight, man. Pure gold, one of them exclaimed, slapping Ethan on the back. Ethan chuckled, his eyes glimmering with a false sense of superiority. It's so easy, though. People like her think they can just walk around with their heads held high. All it takes is a little reminder of their place. Seriously, though, another friend chimed in, leaning in conspiratorially. It's not just her. Do you think she'll ever be anything more than a waitress? Ethan waved his hand dismissively, a flicker of contempt crossing his face. Exactly. They're all the same. Just cogs in the machine. They're lucky to even have jobs like this. As his friends continued to laugh, Ethan remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. He was riding high on his arrogance, convinced that his wealth and status placed him above everyone else. What he didn't know was that his business practices were under scrutiny, and his empire was teetering on the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, in the back of the restaurant, the owner, Mr. Whitmore, watched the scene unfold with a heavy heart. He had spent years building this establishment, creating a haven for culinary artistry and exceptional service. But witnessing Ethan's blatant disrespect for Maya stirred something deep within him, a need to protect his staff and uphold the values he cherished. Mr. Whitmore rubbed the back of his neck, conflicted. He had seen Ethan's kind before, wealthy individuals who threw their money around like confetti, thinking they could do whatever they pleased without consequence. But confronting Ethan felt like a gamble he wasn't sure he was ready to take. The restaurant was his lifeblood, and the thought of losing it was terrifying. As he pondered the situation, he overheard snippets of Ethan's conversation, laced with arrogance and mockery. The laughter of the patrons only served to amplify his discomfort. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he knew he had to do. Just then, Jake emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel, his expression serious. Mr. Whitmore, we need to talk. The owner turned, recognizing the urgency in Jake's voice. What's wrong? It's Ethan. He's being disrespectful to Maya and acting like he owns the place. It's not right. Mr. Whitmore nodded, his expression hardening. I've seen it. It's unacceptable. I can't let him treat my staff like that. But Jake hesitated, glancing back toward the dining area. You know how much he spends here. I don't want to see you risk the business. A heavy silence lingered between them as Mr. Whitmore weighed his options. I can't allow this kind of behavior to continue, Jake. It sets a precedent that we don't tolerate. Our team deserves respect. Jake's eyes widened in surprise, a flicker of hope igniting within him. So you're going to confront him? I have to. For Maya, and for everyone else who works here, Mr. Whitmore replied, determination filling his voice. It's time someone stood up to him. As he stepped toward the dining area, Maya's earlier words echoed in his mind. The restaurant was not just about the food and the profits. It was about the people who made it thrive. Mr. Whitmore knew that standing up for what was right was the only way forward, even if it meant risking everything he had built. Maya, meanwhile, continued to immerse herself in her work, her heart swelling with the encouragement from Jake. As she chopped and sautéed, she felt a sense of purpose returning. She had dreams to chase, and she wouldn't let anyone, especially someone like Ethan, diminish her spirit. And as the kitchen buzzed around her, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that change was on the horizon. In the dimly lit kitchen of the lavish restaurant, the clatter of pots and pans filled the air, a stark contrast to the hushed whispers of the dining room. Maya stood at her station, wiping her hands on her apron, her heart still pounding from the ordeal she had just faced. The insult from Ethan echoed in her mind, a cruel reminder of the prejudices she confronted daily. But as she glanced at her phone, a sense of hope flickered to life. The screen lit up with a call from the prestigious culinary school that had been her dream for years. With trembling hands, she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. Hello, Maya. This is Chef Thompson from the Culinary Institute. I have some exciting news for you. The enthusiasm in his voice was infectious, and Maya felt the weight of her earlier humiliation lift, if only for a moment. Oh my God, really? She gasped, her heart racing as she leaned against the counter for support. Yes. After reviewing your application and your impressive culinary skills, I'm thrilled to offer you a full scholarship. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Tears of joy welled in her eyes, and she quickly wiped them away, not wanting to appear unprofessional in front of her colleagues. Maya, this is just the beginning. Your talent deserves to shine. We can't wait to see what you'll accomplish, Chef Thompson continued, and Maya felt a surge of determination wash over her. As she hung up the phone, a smile broke across her face, illuminating the previously clouded thoughts of despair. She could almost hear her mother's voice, encouraging her to keep fighting for her dreams, to never let anyone dim her light. With renewed vigor, Maya returned to her work, moving through the kitchen with a newfound purpose. Meanwhile, in the dining room, Ethan sat at his table, surrounded by his friends, who were still buzzing with excitement from the extravagant meal. But the aftertaste of his earlier encounter lingered like a bitter pill. He dismissed it with a wave of his hand, trying to focus on the laughter around him. Yet the nagging voice of uncertainty crept into his mind. Dude, did you see the look on that waitress's face? One of his friends, Tom, chimed in, laughing boisterously. I can't believe you called her out like that. She'll be crying for weeks. Ethan shrugged, his bravado faltering. Yeah, whatever. She's just another server. They're all the same, right? Come on, man. Don't you think you went a little too far? Another friend, Mark, questioned, raising an eyebrow. You don't want to get on the bad side of the restaurant owner. Please. Ethan scoffed, leaning back in his chair with a cocky grin. I own this place with my money. They need me more than I need them. But just as he finished speaking, an old acquaintance approached the table, his expression serious as he interrupted the jovial atmosphere. Ethan, we need to talk, he said, his voice low, drawing Ethan's attention away from his friends. "Jake, what are you doing here?" Ethan asked, his tone shifting to one of irritation. "Can't you see I'm busy?" Jake leaned closer, lowering his voice further. "It's about your business practices. You need to take this seriously, man. People are watching." Ethan chuckled dismissively, waving a hand as if to brush off Jake's concerns. "What are you talking about? I'm at the top of my game. My empire is untouchable." "Is it because I've been hearing things?" Jake pressed, his brow furrowed with worry. "You've been cutting corners, and it's only a matter of time before it catches up to you. I wouldn't be surprised if someone files a complaint." Ethan's smile faded, replaced by a scowl. "You're overreacting. I know how to handle my business. Besides, I have people in my corner. I can take care of myself." "I hope you're right," Jake said, stepping back as the tension grew thicker. "Just be careful. You don't want to end up like one of those guys who thinks they're invincible until it's too late." Ethan waved him off, his arrogance rising again like an impenetrable shield. "I appreciate your concern, but I can handle my own affairs. And if anyone tries to cross me, they'll regret it." As the night wore on, Maya's triumph pulsed through her veins, igniting a fire within her. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a rising star, a culinary artist poised to break through the barriers that society tried to impose. She could almost taste the freedom and creativity that awaited her at the culinary school. Back in the front, Ethan continued to bask in his fantasy of control, surrounded by laughter and camaraderie. Yet beneath the surface, the cracks were beginning to show. He could feel the weight of Jake's words pressing down on him, but he refused to let them penetrate his thick skin. As the restaurant began to empty, Maya caught snippets of laughter and chatter from the dining room, a stark reminder of the world she was navigating. She took a deep breath, letting the fragrance of sautéing garlic and fresh herbs ground her, reminding her of why she loved cooking in the first place. "Hey, Maya," Jake called out, stepping into the kitchen with a broad grin. "I heard the news. Congratulations on the scholarship. You deserve it." Maya turned, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Jake. I still can't believe it. You're going to do amazing things. Just keep believing in yourself," he encouraged, his eyes shining with pride. "I will. This is just the start," Maya replied, determination evident in her voice. In that moment, she felt the support of her colleagues around her, a stark contrast to the vitriol she had faced earlier. She was no longer alone in her fight. She had allies who believed in her. As the restaurant prepared to close its doors for the night, Ethan continued to revel in his sense of superiority, oblivious to the warning signs surrounding him. He raised his glass in a toast to his friends, a confident smile plastered across his face. To success and always being on top. His friends cheered, but deep down, uncertainty gnawed at Ethan, a feeling he had long buried beneath layers of arrogance. Despite the laughter, a storm was brewing, one that could soon dismantle the very empire he believed to be invulnerable. Maya stood in the kitchen, her heart alight with purpose and ambition, ready to take on the world. She had a dream that was within her grasp, and no amount of prejudice or arrogance could take that away. As she finished her shift, she could feel the winds of change swirling around her, and she was determined to embrace every moment of it. Little did they know, their paths were destined to intersect again in ways neither could have anticipated, and the lessons of this night would resonate far beyond the walls of the restaurant. The restaurant was dimly lit now, the clinking of glasses and the soft murmur of conversations fading into the background as the final patrons trickled out. Maya stood behind the counter in the kitchen, her heart racing. She had received the scholarship, a golden ticket to her dreams, Yet the encounter with Ethan still lingered in her mind like a bitter aftertaste. She could still feel the weight of his words, the disdain in his voice. But tonight, she felt an undeniable fire within her, a determination to confront the man who had tried to belittle her. Taking a deep breath, she walked out of the kitchen, her steps steady and resolute. The dining area was nearly empty, the tables cleared but remnants of the evening still hanging in the air. She spotted Ethan, who was seated at a table with a couple of his friends, their laughter echoing off the walls. His arrogance was palpable, and for a moment, Maya hesitated. But then she thought of her dreams, her goals, and the scholarship that had redefined her path. She could not let Ethan's words, born from prejudice and ignorance, dictate her self-worth any longer. "Maya, is everything all right?" Jake, her colleague, asked as he noticed her tense demeanor. "I need to do this," she replied, her voice firm. "I need to tell him that he doesn't define who I am." Jake nodded, concern etched on his face. "Just be careful. He's not the kind of guy who takes rejection lightly." With a final nod, Maya squared her shoulders and approached Ethan's table. The laughter died down as he noticed her, and a smug grin crept across his face. "Well, if it isn't the little waitress," he exclaimed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What can I do for you? Need a few extra tips on how to serve a real meal." Maya took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm despite the rising heat in her cheeks. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady, "I want to talk to you about what you said the other night." His friends exchanged glances, amusement flickering in their eyes. "Oh, is this going to be a sob story?" One of them chimed in. Maya ignored them, focusing solely on Ethan. "You think you can belittle me because of the color of my skin and the job I have. But I'm more than just a waitress. You have no idea who I am or what I'm capable of." Ethan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms with a mocking expression. "And what exactly are you capable of? Serving tables? Cleaning up after people like me?" She could feel the anger bubbling inside her, but she channeled it into her words. "I just received a scholarship to a prestigious culinary school. I'm going to be a chef, and I won't let your arrogance or your prejudice define me. You may think you're superior, but your words don't hold power over my dreams." For a moment, silence enveloped the table. Ethan's bravado faltered as he processed her declaration. His friends, once laughing, now exchanged uncertain glances, the atmosphere shifting from joviality to tension. "A scholarship?" he scoffed, trying to regain his footing. "That doesn't mean anything. You'll still be a waitress, just with a piece of paper in your hand." Maya took a step closer, her heart pounding. "You're wrong. This isn't just a piece of paper. It's a chance for me to prove that I can be more than what you see. I won't allow your ignorance to hold me back. I refuse to be defined by someone like you." Ethan's expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty sparking in his eyes. He opened his mouth to retort, but faltered, searching for the right words. "You think you're special just because you got lucky?" "I think I'm special because I've fought for everything I have," Maya replied, her voice gaining strength. "You don't know what it's like to struggle, to dream of something more, while people like you try to stomp on those dreams. But I will rise above it, and I will succeed despite your attempts to belittle me." The tension hung thick in the air, and for a moment, Maya felt a rush of victory. Ethan, the man who had tried to crush her spirit, was now visibly shaken. The bravado that once filled his demeanor was replaced by something more vulnerable, a flicker of realization that perhaps he had underestimated her. "Whatever," he finally muttered, attempting to brush off the encounter. "Good luck with your little dream. You'll need it." Maya turned away, feeling a mix of relief and empowerment. As she walked back towards the kitchen, she could hear the whispers from Ethan's table, a blend of shock and disbelief. She had stood up for herself, and in that moment, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She was not just a waitress. She was a woman with aspirations, a person with dreams that transcended the limitations others tried to impose upon her. The next few days unfolded with unexpected twists. Maya continued to work diligently, her spirits buoyed by the scholarship and the courage she had mustered to confront Ethan. Yet, unbeknownst to her, the repercussions of that confrontation were beginning to ripple through the community. News broke that Ethan's company was under investigation for unethical practices, a reality that sent shockwaves through the business world. As the headlines splashed across local newspapers, Ethan found himself at the center of a scandal that threatened to crumble the empire he had built on arrogance and exploitation. His world, once filled with laughter and entitlement, began to unravel. The very people who had once admired him turned away, whispers of his misconduct echoing in the halls of his business. Meanwhile, Maya continued to focus on her path, her determination unyielding. She immersed herself in her culinary studies, spending hours perfecting recipes and honing her skills. Every dish she crafted was a testament to her resilience, a reminder that she was more than the prejudices she faced. As Maya prepared for her upcoming classes, she often thought back to that encounter with Ethan. It had changed something within her, igniting a fire that fueled her ambition. She realized that moments of confrontation, though painful, could lead to profound personal growth. She was no longer just a victim of circumstance. She was a woman ready to take control of her destiny. In the days that followed, as Ethan's reputation suffered, Maya's story began to resonate within the community. Those who had witnessed the humiliation she faced rallied around her, sharing her triumphs and struggles, creating a narrative that celebrated resilience over prejudice. The contrast between Maya's rising star and Ethan's faltering empire became a powerful reminder that dignity and respect could not be purchased or inherited. They were earned through hard work and integrity. As the restaurant prepared for another busy evening, Maya stepped into the kitchen with renewed vigor. She had transformed adversity into strength, and with each passing day, she felt more prepared to embrace her future. Little did she know, the impact of her confrontation with Ethan would ripple through not only her life, but the lives of many others who had been inspired by her courage to stand up against injustice.